Hello, my sweet friends. Welcome back to the Lantern Lit Hollow. Here, stories glow softly and help you drift off to sleep. So grab your favorite blanket, snuggle in nice and cozy, and when you're ready, we'll begin. This evening's tale is a lesser-known story originally published by the Brothers Grimm back in 1815, and it's called The 12 Dancing Princesses. Once upon a time, there was a king who had 12 beautiful daughters. They slept in 12 beds side by side in one room. Every night, the king took care to lock the door. Yet every morning he found his daughters' dancing shoes worn to pieces.
"How can this be?"
cried the king. But his daughters would not tell him anything, and no one could discover their secret. So the king sent this message far and wide. "He who finds out where my 12 daughters go will be the next king of this land, and he may choose a princess to wed. But if 3 nights pass and he does not know, then I will give one command, and that man shall lose his head." Soon a prince came to the palace. "I will find out your daughter's secret," he told the king. So that night there was a wonderful feast, and the prince was the guest of honor. Then he was led to a room next to the 12 princesses' room.
"I will leave their door open,"
said the king.
"You will hear what they say and see where they go."
"Indeed I will," said the prince. But his eyes began to close, and he fell into a deep sleep. When he awoke in the morning, he found 24 dancing shoes worn through and through. "I will learn the secret yet," thought the prince. But the same thing happened the second night and the third. The prince was brought before the king.
"Do you know where my daughters go every night?"
asked the king. "No, I don't," said the prince. So the king gave his command, and the prince was put to death. Many others tried to learn the secret of the dancing shoes, but all of them failed, and all of them lost their heads. Now it happened that a poor soldier who had been wounded and could no longer fight was walking through the forest near the king's palace. Along the way he met an old woman. "Where are you going?" she asked him.
"I'm not sure,"
said the soldier.
"but wouldn't it be a lucky thing if I learned the secret of the dancing shoes? Then I would have a wife, and one day I would be king."
"It's really very easy,"
said the old woman.
"If a princess brings you wine before you go to bed, just pretend to drink it, then pretend to fall asleep."
"Is that all?"
asked the soldier.
"Not quite,"
said the old woman, and then she gave him an old black cloak.
"The moment you put this on, you will become invisible. Then you can follow the princesses wherever they go. You will see them, but they won't see you."
"Thank you,"
said the soldier.
"Now I really will go speak with the king."
And that is exactly what he did.
"I want to try and learn the secret of the dancing shoes,"
he said.
"Very well,"
said the king, and he ordered some royal clothes for the soldier, who looked just as grand as any prince once he put them on. That night, after a fine feast, the soldier was led to the room next to the 12 princesses' room. Soon the eldest princess came with a cup of wine. "Drink this," she said, "and you shall have sweet dreams." But the soldier had tied a sponge under his chin, and down went the wine straight into the sponge. He did not drink a single drop. Then he pretended to snore his loudest snore. The princesses laughed and rose from their beds. "He will lose his head just like the others," said the eldest. At once they dressed in gowns of satin and lace, with dancing shoes to match. They stood before their mirrors, brushed their beautiful hair, and put on necklaces and rings. All of them were happy, except the youngest princess. "I don't know why, but I'm frightened tonight," she said. "Little goose," said the eldest, "you're always frightened. None of the princes have learned our secret. What makes you think the soldier will? That fool didn't even need the wine with the sleeping potion. He would have slept all night without it." But the youngest princess said, "Let us look on him before we go, just to be sure." And so they did. The soldier's eyes were shut. He didn't move. All he did was snore. "I told you," said the eldest. Then she went to her bed and clapped her hands 3 times. At once the bed sank into the floor, and the 12 dancing princesses started down a secret staircase, with the eldest leading the way. The soldier lost no time. He jumped from his bed and threw on the cloak. The old woman of the forest had spoken the truth. The moment he put on the cloak, he became invisible. Then he ran down the stairs, right behind the youngest princess. He was so close, he stepped on the hem of her gown. "Someone is pulling my gown," she cried. "Don't be silly," said the eldest. "You must have caught it on a nail." Down, down, down they all went, till they were deep underground. There the soldier found himself on a path in a magical forest. The trees sparkled as if they were covered with thousands of stars. The soldier looked closely. The leaves were all made of shimmering silver.
"The king will never believe this," he thought. "I must take a branch to show him."
So he reached for a tiny branch, but no sooner did he break it off than the tree let out a great cry. "What was that noise?" asked the youngest princess. "Someone is blowing a trumpet to welcome us," said the eldest. Next they came to a forest where the leaves were all of shining gold. Then they reached a forest where every tree had leaves of glittering diamonds. The soldier broke a tiny branch off of a tree of gold and a tree of diamonds. Each time the tree let out a great cry. "Something is wrong," said the youngest princess. "I told you," said the eldest. "It's only a trumpet." Soon they came to a large lake. By the shore of the lake there were 12 little boats. In every boat sat a handsome prince. Each princess stepped into a boat, and the soldier sat beside the youngest. "The boat seems heavy tonight," she said, and the prince agreed. He rowed and rowed with all his might, but the boat moved very slowly. On the other side of the lake stood a marble castle lit from top to bottom. The sounds of trumpets, flutes, and drums rang through the open windows.
"Ah," thought the soldier, "what merry music for dancing."
Once inside the ballroom, each prince danced with his princess. The invisible soldier danced too, but of course no one could see him. Then the soldier began to grow bored, and so he decided to play a little game. Whenever a princess held up a cup of wine, he drank from it. By the time she put it to her lips, the cup was almost empty. "This is very strange," said the youngest princess, but the eldest told her not to worry. And so it went on and on they danced, till 3 in the morning. Then their shoes were worn out, and they had to stop. The princes rowed them back across the lake. This time the soldier sat beside the eldest princess. When they reached the shore, the princesses said goodbye to their princes. "We will return tomorrow night," they promised. Then they slowly returned, back through the forest of diamonds, and the forest of gold, and finally the forest of silver. The moment they came to the secret stairs, the invisible soldier ran ahead. He hung up his cloak and quickly got into bed. By the time the 12 princesses reached their room, they heard him snoring loudly. "We're safe," they whispered. Then they took off their jewels and gowns and put them away. They kicked off their shoes, lay down, and fell fast asleep. The next morning, the soldier said nothing to the king. He wanted to see more of the magical world underground. So he followed the princesses again on the second and third nights. Everything happened the same as before. The princesses danced till their shoes were full of holes. But on the third night, the soldier carried away a golden cup to show the king. The next morning, it was time for the soldier to give his answer. So he took the 3 branches and the golden cup and went before the king. The 12 princesses listened behind the door to hear what he would say.
"Do you know where my daughters go every night and dance their shoes to pieces?"
asked the king.
"Yes, I do," said the soldier. "They dance with 12 enchanted princes in a castle underground."
And he told the king everything that had happened.
"That's impossible,"
said the king.
"I have proof,"
said the soldier, and he held out the 3 branches and a golden cup. At once the king called for his daughters.
"Has the soldier told me the truth?"
he asked them. The 12 princesses bowed their heads. "Yes," they whispered.
"Well, well," said the king. "You are a very lucky man. Which of my daughters do you choose for a wife?" "I'm not as young as I used to be," said the soldier. "I will take the eldest." So the wedding was held that very day, and the soldier became heir to the kingdom, just as the king had promised. But the 12 princes remained under a magic spell for as many nights as they had danced with the king's daughters, and no one knows how long that was. And that brings our tale to an end, my sweet friends. Now it is time to turn the lantern down to a soft glow, snuggle with your favorite stuffy, and let yourself drift off to dreamland. Sleep sweet, my dear friends, and I'll be here when next you return to the Lantern Lit Hollow. Good night.